Guys, I've worked with the CEO of a billion-dollar organization. I've worked with 8-figure founders. I've worked with 7-figure entrepreneurs. And in my time coaching them on public speaking, here are my top 5 tips on how you can persuade and get buy-in so that you can get money, get investors to look at you, to get persuasion from your team, grow, and also become someone that people look up to. All right, so the first number one skill or the number one character of my clients who are doing really well in terms of getting buy-in is that they have thought leadership frameworks. Now, the reason why thought leadership frameworks are important whenever we start our coaching session is because I position my clients differently from their competitors or people in the market, and they need to position themselves differently via their ideas. What makes a leader is because they have ideas that drive growth, that drive progress. And if leaders do not sit down to codify their experience, their direction into a framework, the people they are leading do not see the vision of where they're going. And there's a saying, if without a vision, people perish. People need a vision. So if you are a leader or an executive and you don't have a framework, you don't have a way to codify your experience into a framework, then you're losing out and you're missing out on an opportunity of a lifetime. And one, that framework could be something you use on speeches to position your company in a very favorable way. Number two, it could be a repeatable process that your entire organization looks at so that they can follow and get results remarkably, predictably well. So frameworks are really key. So there are several kinds of frameworks in general I work on with my clients. The first one would be like a triangle kind of framework. Very simple. There are different levels you could use. There could also be 3 steps: step 1, step 2, step 3. So triangles are really powerful. You can have something in the middle to represent the entire framework. The other one would be a circle. Now, circles, you could divide it into like a circular motion. Maybe it could even be a quadrant of a circle. So first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant. And I've worked with a particular client on getting a quadrant out of their framework, and it becomes very clear on parts of the whole that make up the big idea. So circles are really good at that. It can also show a sequence. So if you want to show step 1 then step 2 in an order, circles are really good for that. Triangle as well, but triangle also shows like levels, right? Level 1, level 2, but for circles it's more of like parts of the whole, right? And of course I mentioned about breaking it up apart. Besides that, you can also do, I mentioned briefly, a quadrant. So on the x-axis it represents, let's say, your promise, y-axis your proof, right? And what do each of the quadrants represent? Low promise, low proof; high promise, low proof, things like that. And you can create an avatar or a character for each of the quadrant, and when you start naming it, it becomes something signature, right? Obviously it has to make sense. What I like about quadrants, right, and axis is that there is a low and a high, so there's a scalability to it. There's the degree to which you are of a certain trait. So you can put it that way, right? Of course, you can also quote graphs. You can have a simple graph, and then like a relationship between 2 variables. That could be a way, like for example, the curve could go this way, or like straight line graph. So the reason why we have frameworks is so that we can show that we've thought about this countless of times. This is not our first rodeo, and we know what we're doing. Therefore, we are a thought leader. Therefore, listen to us. So first step is to come up with your own framework. Step number 2, what makes my clients really effective when it comes to communication? When they craft their speech, when they are up there on stage, when they're trying to persuade, they confirm what is the central thesis of the speech. Now, why do I say that? The thesis of your speech is one key message, not 3, not 5, not 6, one central message that is the root and the core of your entire 45-minute presentation. And the reason why we work on a thesis is because we need to ensure everybody remembers your speech. So if I were to ask you, okay, what do you remember from the speech? They should remember your one key thesis. If they don't remember it, it means you didn't nail it, right? And the reason why you as a speaker or as a leader need to nail your thesis is so that you don't go out of point. You need to ensure every single thing you say in your speech goes back to the thesis. If you don't ensure that, then you will end up having very mixed ideas of what your speech was about. And the best way to know, or one of the ways to know whether your speech was a good one or not, it would be to ask the people that actually heard the speech, and if they said A, B, and C, then you probably didn't nail it, right? So have a central thesis. So what I do is, I call it the waterfall method. From a central thesis, you do a waterfall. Now you have 3 core ideas, but these 3 core ideas need to have a link to the central thesis for it to make sense, right? If you branch out anything more than 3 core ideas, it'll probably get lost in the woods. So I don't recommend anything more than 3. Central thesis with 3 core ideas, and from that's where you get your examples and everything else comes in. The third is a bit more tactical when it comes to how to persuade somebody, and I've used this for founders who are CEOs of billion-dollar companies, pitching to their boards, doing a New Year's address, and I've done this for 8-figure founders who need to speak to the team, and of course to leaders who need to give presentations, right? And the key is, the tactical thing is the start and the end. So we call it start end. Start, end. Your start and your end determines a bulk of your speech. Why? Because especially if you're in a conference, people will decide whether they want to listen to you from the beginning of your speech. If you don't nail the beginning of your speech, they might check out. So if you don't do a good job nailing the start of your speech, they will check out from the conference, they'll get a coffee, they go outside, go to the toilet, and they'll predict how well of a speech you're going to give based on your start. So you have to nail the start. And we have several tactics. We can use rhetorical devices, we can use analogies, metaphors. I've had some of my clients present in front of like thousands of people, I think like 3,000 financial services directors and professionals, and they used a Coke bottle, and they compared the Coke bottle and a bottle of water that had no casing on it, no brand. Then they asked, which one would you trust? The one that says Coke or the one that is questionable, right? So these methodologies of having start and end is very powerful. How you end matters as well, because by the time you get past the meat of your speech, some of them would have started coming back from the toilet breaks, from maybe another room or another breakout, and decision makers would likely stick at the end, and they will want to see whether this was a good speaker or not. So they will come in around that time. Some of them, right? They're busy. So you got to nail the end so that they will remember you. And it's really about nailing the call to action as well. Now, so start end is crucial. Now, of course, besides start and end, the fourth aspect, and I know a lot of people like to talk about storytelling, but what I like to talk more about is not necessarily the storytelling element, but it's really how specific examples, case studies you can give in your speech to make it feel real and human and make them feel a connection. The fourth aspect is, how do we build connection by being very specific with our case studies and our examples, right? So the reason why our case studies and our examples need to be very specific, and our stories by extension, is because it shows that you're someone that actually lived it. If I can tell you, imagine waking up in Singapore, in the north part of Singapore, and you were to see Causeway Point, and then as you walk down, you'll be able to see Civic Centre, and then you'll be able to see the Woodlands MRT. I'm being very specific about what I'm going to see because I've lived there. I live in the north part of Singapore. So if you don't live there, you can't be specific. So if you compare 2 leaders, the first leader can be very specific. Hey, Alan, I really appreciate you because I remember it was 2 a.m. and it was past your work time. You had to answer a call. It was do or die. It was going to affect our company. We're going to lose a 6-figure deal. You delivered anyway. I truly appreciate it. I know it's not a regular expectation, but you went above and beyond. That is a CEO and a leader that truly knows what's going on and what's at stake. And someone listening to that praise or affirmation would appreciate that. So be very specific with your case studies, with your examples, because it shows that you're a true practitioner and you took the liberty and the care and the attention and the consideration to go and zoom in. So specificity, your case studies and storytelling is crucial. And the 5th key skill when it comes to public speaking, when it comes to persuading and getting buy-in and getting people to jump on board with your idea, is the skill of belief transfer, not information transfer. And the reason why belief transfer is more important than the information transfer is because today information is a commodity. Anyone can just look it up via AI, via Google search. But belief transfer is where it's at. Information transfer is for robots and AI. Belief transfer is for human beings. Information transfer is about data. Belief transfer is about what it means. What does that data mean, right? Information transfer gives you the numbers, but the belief transfer gives me how that affects my outcomes and my life. So the consequences of that. So the reason why we need to move away from just giving information to belief is so that you address it at the root cause, because a large number of you giving speeches want to have behavioral change, and behavioral change does not happen because you gave them a piece of statistic. Behavioral change happens because you have mapped out this is where they are at, this is what they believe, and this is what they need to believe in order for them to buy my thing or join my team or invest. So if you mapped the before and after, the old way and the new way, then what you've effectively done is you've helped them cross the bridge. Now, if you don't map it at the level of their beliefs, I can download a million pieces of information, but I will still not budge, I'll still not move. As long as you don't address the human being at the level of their beliefs, their behavior doesn't change. Remember, beliefs affect behavior. Shift the beliefs and behaviors are much more easy to change. So those are the 5. I hope you use all 5. Obviously, there's more, but I hope these are 5 key ideas that will help you in your next presentation so that you can get buy-in, you can get the money, get the investors, get the teammate, get the co-founder, get the sale, and you can grow your business.